Do you ever poop? Well, if you do, you understand that pooping is a holy and sacred practice that requires your utmost dedication and focus. Well, if you're like me, who is practically a poop pilgrim, has no qualm spreading the Holy Scripture to public places like gas stations or store restrooms. One of the most annoying or worst feelings while dropping Scripture is having people either talk to you or around you, as it distracts you from said holy deeds. This situation I want to talk about today is very similar to someone coming into your safe place and dropping unwanted attention.
So, like, there's a certain extent where I'm like, okay, sure, I get people wanting big content creators to like say their opinions on like important topics. I get that, right? But it's like if you need a streamer who doesn't even know anything about politics to tell you about politics, you probably just need to like get off the internet. Like, just stop. Like hello. Like,
I agree with this statement. Something I see people often argue against this point, saying that it's hard for them to not feel slighted by people they look up to not giving comments, even on easy slam dunks, such as these situations, because they feel personally targeted. And I can empathize with that position. I really can. However, I don't think it's necessarily fair. Once you do engage with a certain topic, it's inevitable you will engage with future topics as well and create some sort of conflict. You might think that it's fine to be in conflict with these certain people as they are the opposition to you. But not everything in every space has to be a battlegrounds for the righteous. Sometimes it's okay to have spaces in which you can just exist. Should you avoid politics like the plague? No, absolutely not. I am of the personal belief that it's important to stay informed of the climate of the world and events around you for the safety of yourself and others. You absolutely can get way too involved in these topics, however. You can poison your mind engaging with one type of media too much. The issue is not being too learned on a topic. The issue is not having an outlet and then engaging with these sensitive topics in reckless ways. So when I see people like Emiru who claim they don't wish their spaces to be politically charged and just be a place where she can just talk and play games and do her cosplay, I for the life of me cannot see an issue with that. If all you want is Emiru to voice the right thought and simply move on a regular basis, that's just about optics more for you and not even her. Asmongold even blew the whistle, showcasing that she was the one to end her podcast called Steak and Eggs, which is a podcast hosted by Emiru and Asmongold.
I'm just going to leak this, right? She's the one that wanted to not do Steak and Eggs anymore because she didn't want to be involved with the different like controversial stuff. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. That was a big reason. It was the main reason, actually. That's it.
Fuck me. This is a take two because I didn't unmute myself for the recording and I lost all that footage.
Oh, there's a hole in my shirt. Oh, everything's fucking ruined.
Desiring this low level of engagement doesn't serve any sort of purpose but your own self-satisfaction. I fully understand that you don't accidentally want to be supporting somebody that could be, that may have heinous opinions, but you really can't control that kind of thing until you get to that bridge. Reality is you don't know every single thought a person you might watch thinks, aside from me, because I have all the right opinions. But if you just want a robotic mouthpiece to go this bad, this good, without delving into the topic in a more intimate way, then you're achieving nothing. If you want her to engage with it on a more intimate level, then that kind of counters the entire point of, her stream being a non-contentious area where she just kind of chills and plays game and does cosplay. If I go to work or spend all day arguing legislation and then come home and immediately dive right back into it, where's the mental break there? Most people would want to watch TV, play video games, jerk off, maybe find them a new movie to watch, jerk off, whatever that gives them that mental break so they can re-engage all of that stuff the very next day with a more clear and open mind. But having absolutely no break from anything is just depressing. Some people can face take the rockets of life and it stresses indefinitely, and that's insane. That's incredible, but that's a rare trait. Most people need that escapism, need that relief, or just to simply rest their mind. If you allow this for yourself, you might be surprised that your engagement with these heavier topics become a lot easier to deal with. We all know there are people who nonstop engage with politics that might seem radical or even lazy. It could be due to many of reasons why they are like that. But I think a nonstop fixations without allowing yourself a mental break at all might be the exact reason why they're like that. Especially when US politics at this point is at the point of parody. Almost everything is spoon fed to us, like politically speaking. Like when you see politics everywhere, it's injected everywhere in for comedy slash satire now, information, infotainment. You see it in the shorts, you see it on streams, you see it recommended it to you on YouTube. You see commercials with it. You see literal grocery stores that are owned by Trump and all that. Like it's just everywhere. You can't escape its influence. Not saying you should be wholly avoidant, though. Is Emiru blameless in this situation? I don't think so. I wholly understand her point of view and empathize with her, but she kind of opened the floodgates by even acknowledging the comment in the first place. But she made a post today, actually, in which she claims it was an accident, which is possible. If that's the case, well, nothing you can do. The floodgates are open, and well, there's almost no point to not acknowledging it now. In her statement, she said she was responding to a mod asking a question that included the word ICE. Then she clarified that she is not someone who engages in this kind of content, so it didn't really click as they were referring to the ICE agency. She says there was a cut after she acknowledges the initial comment to make it seem like she was responding directly to the question, but she wasn't. I went ahead for the sake of full transparency and found the unedited clip from her stream. Here it is.
Oh yeah, I don't know what that is. Like, I genuinely have no idea what that is. I don't know what you're talking about.
Celebrate, don't wait too late.
What is was sonnet?
No, you don't stop, you can't.
Don't know what. Oh no, I know what ice is. I thought. Okay, never mind.
If she was genuinely lost in the sauce because it was from left field from a mod, I can believe it. I get discombobulated holding a regular conversation, so I'm not going to act like it's the weirdest thing to get tripped up over. And the stutter there. Back to her post, she went to clarify her actual positions on ICE, going to say, it should go without saying no one deserves to live their life in fear of being killed or taken away from their homes or families, regardless of who is doing it, but especially not because of ICE or any other government agency. I understand the world is a very cruel and messed up place. You don't have to study politics or actively read the news to know that. I would never want to invalidate anyone who struggles with those things, and an agency like ICE causing fear and suffering deserves zero support to me. That's not even political. It's basic human empathy, which I think is more than a fair statement, but I disagree that because it is political in nature, because it's unfortunately it's so divisive. Even though I agree with her positions on ICE, many others are not going to feel the exact same way. I find their recent actions absolutely disgusting, but her sentiment at the end of the day is a good one, in my opinion. If she or anyone else that is generally apolitical decided to not engage further, however, I would not care. I would not blame them, whatever, because in this case, as she did accidentally talk about it in her stream, I think she made the smart play here in, going further in on the topic because, the floodgates were already open at that point. She would then continue to talk about how it was malicious in nature to, how the clip was taken and make it seem like she was directly responding from the get-go. And I get that. It definitely seems misleading. And you see that with every streamer from all quarters on the internet. People will try to clip them out of context and try to make it seem like they're saying things they're not. Everyone will claim it at certain points if, they're dealt with a situation. And in many cases, it's true. She then decided to, as the floodgates were open, she would talk about the other topics in which she actually was being flamed for not covering, which includes what we knew with Asmongold's clip, that she was essentially disassociating from all the problematic things in her life. From the podcast, the people associated in her circles like Lucari and Tectone. If you don't know, Tectone is a streamer who recently lost a lawsuit by another entertainer and ex-girlfriend named Pinky Chew, where she was granted a long-term protective order because he was accused of sexual assault. Lakari was streaming and opened a notepad in which contained suspicious links which looked like it could potentially lead to CSAM or CSAM adjacent material. She emphasizes that anyone who abuses people or children is not her friend and will never be. All in all, my opinion of the situation is it was fucking stupid. It had no reason to even be drama in the first place. If you want political engagement, please, for the love of God, like, look for political commentators to engage specifically in that kind of content with. I wouldn't expect to be discussing speedrun tactics with an Animal Crossing streamer and harassing them that they're not, min-maxing their farms or whatever they're doing. And so I think the exact same standard should be applied for politics and non-political streams. Like, there's a time and place for everything, and there's a pace, and a lot of people just can't, engage with politics in a moderate position. It's always got to be extreme. It's always got to be radical, especially on platforms like X. It does nothing, and you make your belief system look like a social club, and it just belittles the actual things you care about. I didn't really want this to be the first topic I engage with a general commentary, but oh well. I promise I won't just be a negative Nelly, and I'll talk about other funny stuff here and there, like the funny hee-hees and the interesting hoo-nannies. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for listening.